Seeing that it's 10 o'clock, I'd like to call this meeting of the Opioid Abatement Funding Advisory Board to order. Please remind you to turn your cell phones off or turn them to vibrate. And also, the Opioid Board allows speakers to speak to any item on the agenda. The speaker's limited to 2 minutes. With that, let's say the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to recognize Chris Schaefer, I believe it is, from County Attorney's Office, sitting in for Ms. Hankins today. Thank you for being here with us. This time, I would entertain the motion to approve the board meeting minutes from last meeting.
I make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
Second.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
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 All right, with that, moving along, we will now have a short presentation by Pensacola Police Department Chief Eric Randall on the request.
Good morning, board and board chair and vice chair and other members. Eric Randall, police chief for the city of Pensacola, and I come before you today to talk about an item in reference to our experiences with opioid and fentanyl in the community. One of the things that we're talking about is we wanted to make a request for the Pensacola Police Department for some opioid funding to be able to purchase 3 TruNarc narcotics identification devices to help us in the field as we continue our efforts to combat the opioid and fentanyl epidemic in the community. Just last week, I was present at a press conference where Pensacola Medical Examiner's Office has been designated as the most deadly per capita in the state of Florida when it comes to opioid and fentanyl overdoses, which is a shame for our most beautiful area here on the Gulf Coast. So we are requesting 3 of these TruNarc machines at about, I believe, about $78,000 per, a total of about $78,000 with training, about $80,000 for the machines. These will be very, very beneficial in the field for our patrol officers and narcotics officers as we go out and to proactively address the opioid epidemic we have in our community to help us safely identify narcotics without actually having to open and expose ourselves or others to the known derivatives of opioids and fentanyls that's in the community. Thank you. I can answer any questions if you have any.
Yes, Chief, how are you this morning? Thank you for being here. You have 3. How many officers do you have on your force?
I have 165 when fully staffed. I do have a number that's a number of those that are in training right now, but when fully staffed, about 165.
Okay, so these are 3 units.
Yes, sir.
Will that be sufficient?
We kind of take a holistic approach and looked at that, and what I was trying to do with these 3 units was to put 1 on each shift. We have 2 patrol shifts, a day shift and a night shift, and then 1 to be with the narcotics unit, where the unit can be shared. At this time, I believe 3 may be sufficient, but like I said, this is a new item for us, so you don't know what you don't know until you get into it. So.
Okay. I was just, I know the sheriff is covers a lot bigger area, and they came down last month and requested funding for pretty much, I believe, these same units. And so I know you guys got a smaller territory, but I was looking at 3 and like, well, would 3 actually be sufficient for everything that we have going on in our city? But okay, so 3, you say 3, that's fine. So.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
I make a motion that we put this before the Board of County Commissioners to approve the narcotics units and the kits in the amount of $80,379 from the Opioid Abatement Fund.
I second that.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Next item on the, next item on the agenda is an update from the EMS on their efforts in what they're seeing in the day-to-day operations with their people as far as fatigue goes, and as well as your program that you started months ago. So if you would, please just bring us an update on that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, committee members. When we last met, we had a discussion. We were talking about our plan for how we would get everything together and what our intentions were with the core program that we've had sponsored through the state of Florida, the Coordinated Opioid Recovery Effort. Since that time, we've had some tremendous things happen for us. Certainly, we have our staff in place. We have registered nurses on our team, as well as EMTs that are assisting with transport of these patients. And I too was at the same press conference with Chief Randall last week, and we're taking a different approach. Obviously, the drugs in our community are a problem, and as EMS providers, those responsible for medical and healthcare, we don't have the ability to get the drugs off the street. So what we've done is taken the approach of, if we can't control the supply, we'll control the demand. And the demand is making people better, giving them better lives, making better choices to where they're no longer utilizing these drugs. For us, we did our first induction on April 19th. An induction is where we identify someone that meets all the criteria to be placed on medication-assisted therapy. We utilize Suboxone medication to treat them. The plan for us is to treat them in the field wherever they are, whether they're unhoused, whether they're staying at a shelter, whether they're staying at a friend, whether they, some of our younger folks, we've actually had one who was still living with parents. So, we will go wherever we need to, because that's what we felt was one of the big identifying missing pieces was, if we see him in a hospital and we can treat him there, but what happens when we don't see him in a hospital? You can't throw everything else out the window and say, okay, you've done your part, you were either transported or you came to a hospital, but what are we doing on our part to find you where you are? Because maybe you don't have transportation, maybe you don't know this program exists. So in that time, up until, and I'm just going with our current numbers, we've had 32 people completely be inducted into our program. Now, some of those either initially did not meet the qualifications because of the drugs they were using or their circumstances. There's very strict criteria they have to meet in order to do it. You just can't go out and start giving them these medications, because that can cause adverse effects. Of the 32, we've had 13 successful, what we call graduates already. They've already been on these medications. They've already come off of drugs. We've gotten them jobs. We've gotten them clothes. We've gotten them food. We're taking them to regular appointments, whether it's healthcare appointments, mental health appointments, and what have you. Our plan initially was a 7 to 10 day process where they would be with EMS to try to have a limited time where we could get them over to the FQHC, Community Health Northwest Florida, so we could get them over there for that long-term addiction therapy, mental health therapy, and eventually get them on a prescription of Suboxone. So those are the steps that we've taken to get this process off the ground. I will tell you recently, and I actually got one yesterday that was sent to me by the supervisor that I put in charge of the core team. We got a letter yesterday from one of our graduates. And I have to tell you, when you read that, it makes everything else, good, bad, or indifferent, seem absolutely insignificant. When someone tells you they're alive and you have changed their life as a result of your efforts. Period. The end. I will argue that with anybody, anywhere, anyplace, anytime. You're talking about people that were at the lowest of lows, people who just needed to be able to make a difference in their life, didn't know where to turn, have experienced bad things. And we said, hey, we're going to offer a little tough love, as I've mentioned before, but we're also going to be there with you to follow you through this journey. And not just to the FQHC, where they go for this long term, but we're going to continue to follow you as long as you need us. You need transportation services, we're going to give it to you. You need someone just to come check on you, we're going to do it for you. There's other services you need that we can't provide, we're going to find them for you and make sure you get them. Something as simple as a cell phone, or follow-ups with other types of medical care needs that they have. These are things that just completely get overlooked. As I told you before, there was that wash, rinse, repeat that just, I'll be honest, just made me sick. The fact that, you go into a hospital, overdose, or you're experiencing a drug problem, and then you would get the treatment at that time to get you the care you needed, and then you would get a referral, and you would walk out the door, never to be seen again until we, as EMS, pick you up again, take you back to the hospital, wash, rinse, repeat. And that just got old. So our team has just done fantastic things, and this thing has grown faster than probably I ever expected. We never were under the guise of thinking that when we started, we were going to have thousands of people just come to us and say, I want to get off drugs. That's just not reasonable. But we also didn't think, too, that those who came to us, it was going to be easy, where we walk in, we give them their medication, and in a few days, life is good and everything's great. We did have 2 of this entire group that we've had in our process that after a few visits and whatnot, just kind of fell off the radar. They disappeared. They're struggling. It's addiction. One of the best things I heard at the Opioid Summit was a gentleman say, addiction is the only disease where people try to stay sick. It's true. You don't want cancer, you don't want heart disease, but in order to get that feel that you need to stay where you are, you try to stay sick with your addiction by utilizing drugs. So that, when you comprehend that and think about that, that's a huge piece that it's almost sometimes insurmountable. But as a team, both with our FQHC, and I have to say, Sacred Heart Hospital has stepped up as well in a partnership with us to start induction processes there. Our team has even taken great lengths to figure out what can we do to revise our process. So, for example, if our nurses aren't currently in an appointment with somebody and they're kind of, doing paperwork and reviewing cases, and they hear an ambulance go out to an overdose call, they'll go to the call with them so they can meet the patient right then and there on scene. And if it's necessary and we're able to, they'll start to discuss with them if the patient's able to discuss their current situation, tell them about our program. By the time they get to the hospital, they're already familiar with who we are. They understand what it is we're offering. They understand the process that we're trying to give them that's before them. In the same light, the hospital recognizes, especially Sacred Heart, has recognized that when these patients come in, let's say someone brought them in by car, so EMS never had in contact, they will call our team and say, hey, we have a patient here we believe is a very good candidate for your program if y'all can come on over. We go over, we meet them, it's private, it's one-on-one, sometimes two-on-one, but we don't overwhelm them. We just let them know this is an option that's available to you. A couple of the things that I want you to realize what it is we're doing. Of the 12 patients we've had, the 13 patients, the successful, what we call graduates, 10 of them have gone to Community Health Northwest Florida through their processes and their program. 2 of those patients have gone through Lakeview, and 1 of those patients actually got into outpatient treatment in Birmingham. We set them up with family members that are in Birmingham that was a good family support system after talking with them and kind of working collaboratively, and said, we feel you've got the support there. They've proven to us that they're here for you. If we can get you into that program there where you have someone to assist you and have that family support, we feel that would be best for you. We still continue to follow up, even though this patient's out of state. And I mean, Alabama's not that far away, but still it's not somewhere where our team can respond. And this patient is doing wonderful. We do HCG pregnancy tests on all of our females to make sure that we're following appropriate processes if they have addiction, to make sure that medical-wise we're doing everything necessary in that light. And we also test all of our patients utilizing the same urine drug screens that the FQHC uses for consistency in each encounter we have with them, to make sure they haven't been using, they haven't been falling off, they are doing what they're supposed to do and getting the medication that it is that we're giving them. A couple of the barriers that we've run into. One of the things that we found, and I think this is kind of not only for our core program, but I think it's focused there, is a licensed clinical social worker. For us, there's a lot of resources that our staff is spending a great deal of time, trying to contact others. They're on the phone trying to contact others, and a lot of times it kind of falls off the radar or takes significantly longer than we expected. I did put in my budget for next year with the state, the funds are going to be transferred over to a different entity. I did request a licensed clinical social worker in that group because we think that's going to be imperative to get to the next level, to get those additional resources and to really keep everything in close. And if we're monitoring it in-house and we're doing it in-house, then really we're not having to be dependent on, making 10, 15, 20 different phone calls over a period of time. We have it right here in-house with our people, talking face-to-face, talking directly with the patient to help kind of bring that in. Housing, I know this is nothing new that anybody in this community hasn't heard. Again, low barrier shelters, as well as shelters and places for women and children. I will tell you that, and this is no secret, our staff, some of our nurses have gone to the point where in order to facilitate an induction and make sure that our patients had what it is they needed, they have paid out of their own pockets for hotel rooms for these people to stay the night, to have a place to sleep in a bed, to be safe, to have shelter, to take a shower, just to have some sense of normalcy. Because that's the direction that we promised we would go, and that's what we promised we would do. Identification. I did meet with Scott Lunsford and have a chat with him. He has a great program that's being facilitated that's able to get out to the community for those who can't get to one of the local offices to get, a state ID, driver's license, whatever it is they need. That's been imperative because in order to get prescriptions, an identification is necessary. So those who have either lost it, never had it, we're helping facilitate those processes as well. I do have to say thank you to Clay Romano at Waterfront. They have dedicated 6 beds for us, for our patients, for these specific processes so that, because it's become quite prevalent that, we'll get someone in, we'll get them the Suboxone, they're getting the treatment, but, they don't have the shelter, they don't have the shower, they don't have a place to stay, they don't have a place to do their laundry and get food. And they've dedicated that to us as well and been assistive in those processes, along with, of course, the entire community. So, I had a chance to talk to one of our patients this morning before I came here. Actually talked to him, asked how he's doing. He has clarity of thought. He's holding very nice conversations. He's making good decisions. He has a job. I asked him, what can we do better? We already know what we're doing good. You've given us props. You've said thank you. We love that. We appreciate that. But what can we do better? They would like us to be able to, and this is more, again, of across the board thing with our community partners, they would like us to be able to provide more definitive structure and more definitive timeline. And what I mean by that is we tell them we're going to bring them into our program. Your expectation on your initial visit with EMS is we're going to see you anywhere from 7 to 10 days before we can get you in for that long-term provider, get you the mental health appointments, the addiction therapy appointments, the medication, et cetera. But sometimes it doesn't work like that. And sometimes it's longer than the 7 to 10 days. And for them, in their mind, if I show you, on a piece of paper, step 1, step 2, step 3, you've got those hurdles you're getting over. And you're over hurdle 2, and here's the next hurdle, and you know how far away it is. But when those timelines sometimes become blurred or certain processes don't facilitate, as we all would hope, sometimes things just happen. Places are overcrowded, we don't have enough resources, whatever the case may be, that tends to put them on a little bit of a position where they just kind of just a little bit lose a little bit of faith. And we have to re-encourage them, and we're there for them. We're doing everything from taking them to get haircuts. We're taking them to, optometry appointments. We've even got some bikes donated where one of our patients that has a job just up the street from her house, it's about a mile, but it's also 110 degrees outside. So, we do what we can to get them where they can, but we've at least given them a bicycle where they can get somewhere close by to run some smaller errands. There's a pharmacy up the street and things like that. This person went out of their way to get one of those edible arrangements I'm sure you've seen. It looks like flowers, but it's fruit and all, and had it sent to our core team with one of the most heartfelt notes you've ever seen in your life, thanking them for changing their life. I saw this person both prior to induction into our program, both their physical and mental state, and I see what they look like now. You would not believe what this person, they look like a completely different person. You would never say the person in picture A is the same person in picture B. There's just no way that's possible. You would actually think it's false, and it's not. I know who this person is, and it's fantastic to see these things are starting to, to come full circle. We expect in the immediate that, we're going to continue to get busier. We have 3 more referrals that we just got from the very patients that are in our program who know there's others that need help. What better than those who have seen the successes to be able to tell, friends, family, whomever, hey, if you're looking to make a change, I know where you can get it. It's going to be a journey. It's not going to be the easiest decision you have ever made, but I promise you when you get to the other side, you're going to say, I can't believe I'm here. So that's kind of in a nutshell what we're doing. We're going to continue to keep growing. I've been working with both, of course, our local partners, but I've been also working with the state, so the Department of Children and Families. We've been working with DOH, Northwest Florida, the managing entity, working with them as well in preparation for this next upcoming year and how we can make this better, how we can revise what we're doing, and how we can make any changes necessary. So there's a few community programs coming up that we're going to be a part of as well. I'm in the process of trying to make a pop-up tent that's got our logos and everything on it. I have some business cards that I would like for you all to see, so when that opportunity, I'd like to bring those up and pass those out to you so you can give those if ever you know somebody. But this is where we're at and what we're doing. So I really appreciate the opportunity to be here and to put this information out. Certainly, any questions you all may have or would like to know, I'd love to hear them.
Okay. Thank you, Chief, for your presentation. It sounds like you and your team are doing some excellent work out there, and I applaud your efforts in that. And any questions of the Chief right now?
Hello, Chief.
Good morning.
Man, it's great to see you again.
You too, sir.
That is awesome. You came last, fall, and said this is what you're in, to see your movement on this is just awesome. So my first question to you, what can we do to help you?
That's a great question. So the first thing I would say is assist us in spreading the word with what it is we're doing. This is the first step, passing these cards out. Not only does it have our information on it, we had a phone number created, of course, area code 850-477-HELP, 477-HELP. And those last four are 4357 in the exchange for the letters. I had to look at that myself because we don't have the old school telephones anymore, so I'm trying to figure that one out. But we want to get the word out there. We want people to know that this is actually here. There was a story that went out but a couple of months ago that said this program wasn't up and running. We were still trying to hire staff. That just completely wasn't true. We've been seeing people. We've been seeing patients. Our staff are going to encampments in the woods. Our staff are going to shelters for the unhoused. Our staff are going everywhere they possibly can to meet these people. So getting the word out about what it is we're doing and what our goal is from our side, from EMS. I mean, yes, we want our brothers and sisters in law enforcement to stop the drugs. That makes my world a whole lot easier. But also we want to get the word about what we're doing to try to help people. So, the other piece is we don't know yet the full circle of where we stand with our budget for next year with the state. I'm still waiting to get some of those answers back. We have a vehicle that we purchased, so that part is done. We have 4 nurses and 2 EMTs that are assistive in the transport piece, but I fully see with as busy as we become, we're probably going to have to up staff in order to maintain the patient caseload we have, as well as, my suggestion on the licensed clinical social worker, of course, the additional RNs. That in itself is going to be monumental in really getting out there and being able to provide. I've seen our staff. They are working diligently night and day. They're taking phone calls on weekends. They're doing everything they can to facilitate, helping these patients. And, just the support that you allow me to be here and get this word out to you for others to see and to let people know that there is an answer. And it's in our core team. It's there, right there, both with Escambia County EMS, Community Health Northwest Florida, and with, tremendously right now, Sacred Heart Hospital. So I would just ask that if you could keep doing that for us. And if, when the time comes, I'd like to be able to come back to you and offer some suggestions, but I want to wait until I can find out what the state is officially offering for next year's budget and how they're going to allow us to grow. Each county was given the opportunity to develop it their own based on what they thought would fit, their need. A Palm Beach County is going to be significantly different than that of an Escambia County versus a Volusia County or a Flagler County. So we've done that. We believe we've done it well. But we're going to continue to keep revising and make it as best we can. So,
Outside of your normal duties as EMS, this seems to be like a whole separate branch from EMS. I know it's within it. How and where are you housing this at? Like, are you doing this out of your EMS office, or how are you doing that? Like, where is it housed at?
yes, sir, that's correct. So 6575 North W Street, our headquarters, where EMS headquarters is. We have an office there that myself and another employee, we painted it for them, got it all set up. It's ready to go. They've been working out of that office there because remember, they're in the field a lot. So, but they need a base where they're keeping, charts and files and information on all of our patients and, contact information. Obviously with this new phone number now, if they're out in the field, if you call the phone number that goes to the desk, it goes right to, after a couple of rings, it forwards to the field. So we don't miss any phone calls that might be imperative. It is a separate division, if you will. So, EMS, Emergency Medical Services, we run, 911 calls, right? That's traditionally what everybody thinks it is we do. But I think there's also a breakdown in the lack of other things that we can do to help facilitate that 911 side. One of which is there are a lot of people in the community, not only with this, struggling with addiction, that potentially use 911 services, whether it's lack of resources, lack of knowledge, whatever. So I'll just call an ambulance. Well, maybe that's not necessary, I've had a fever for a few days, or I've got a minor toothache or something along those lines. So this division, which is Mobile Integrated Health, Community Paramedicine, these are the folks that can go out and start finding out what are some long-term needs that potentially folks continuously use the 911 system for that if they were educated and pointed in the right direction and assisted with those resources, will no longer continue to call 911 just because either they don't know who to call or they don't know. I mean, we get phone calls realistically for people that Friday going into a Saturday, they didn't do their diligence to get their hypertension medication refilled for high blood pressure. So they'll call an ambulance to take them to the ER because they can get a few days worth of medicine to keep them by until they can get to the pharmacy to get everything set up. We don't know what we don't know until we get there to evaluate. So we have to send an ambulance for that, right? So what community paramedicine, which is part of what this program is, does, and we're in the process of working an even bigger piece, is tele-911, if you're not familiar, where we can go to a patient's house. They call us for whatever they've called for. We can do an evaluation. We can say, hey, listen, you've called us for this today. Let me get you in touch here on this screen with a doc. Doc can talk to you. Doc can call you in a script. Doc can evaluate you. You never have to leave your house. We don't need to tie up an ambulance for a much lower priority call. Everybody gets the resource we need, and we can stay focused on what it is we're doing. So they've been operating out of that, although they're in the field 90% of the time, meeting with people, meeting with community partners, and doing what we call inductions, medication-assisted therapy. And it's been working tremendous.
Awesome. Last question.
Yes, sir.
You had 30, you said, right? Correct?
32, yes, sir.
32.
Well, I say 32, let me clarify, that 2 of those were brought in.
Right.
Went through the whole process, and then they kind of disappeared. We tried to find them, but maybe they just weren't ready.
So out of your calls of those 32 of those 32, age groups on those, have you dealt with minors in those 32, or do your program currently facilitate minors?
That is correct, we do. Now, the biggest piece that everyone needs to understand when it comes to minors, and minors have not been a large portion, whether it's the addiction discussion or whether it's just the general 911 calls, minors don't encompass as great of a piece as do the 30 to 39 age group. 30 to 39 is the biggest age group that we see, both in males and females, that fall into this category, especially in the addiction discussion. We have had one specific that was a minor, in which case, in order to get through those processes, we deal with the parents. The parents are the legal guardians. They're the ones who get permission to treat, to do everything. But we have had some folks in their very, very early 20s, and I mean like very early 20s, many, many years ago for me anyway. And, you look at that and go, think of where you were when you were 20. Think of where you were and what you were doing and what your ambitions were. And, did you have a job? Didn't you have a job? Did you have the support? And that's what we're seeing. So that's been the focus as far as age groups for us that we've seen. But we've actually had someone that was actually, believe it or not, in their 70s that called us that has had lifelong with pain management issues that's transformed over into an abuse of pain medication. So they've reached out to us as well. And may not be ideal for the core program, but that doesn't mean when we run them through all of the tests and the processes and all the evaluations, if they don't meet anything for medication-assisted therapy, we just don't say, sorry, you don't make it. We say, how else can we help you? What else can we do to get you the help you need? You need transportation to appointments. Is there a referral we can get you? Can we get you to a primary care? Do you have a primary care? So, those are the pieces where we've picked up that we're realizing is that uptick. And we're getting phone calls a lot now for, I think, some folks that maybe kind of just want to use this as an Uber. And I wish I could help that many people. I really do.
Right.
But we want to focus on those that have the medical components that go along with it to make sure we don't lose them off of our radar. So.
Okay, so because your challenges is like the housing and the licensed clinical social worker.
Yes, sir.
It's one of your two time.
That's one of my
big
biggest asks. Where there's a lot of times, even outside of the core, we'll go to a patient's house where we find their situation is nowhere near ideal. They don't have the assistance. They live alone. And EMS says, what can we do for them? Well, we can do something. We can get referrals. We can get them the resources they need. So that would be my ask.
Thank you, Chief.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Chief, how has it been with the hospitals with the core program? Are they communicating with you when people just come in to show up at the hospital that y'all don't come in contact with? How's that been?
It's been well. As I said before, Sacred Heart Hospital has really stepped up and worked well with us as far as, a hospital can do an induction. So physicians that have the training, and they've gone through those processes with their leadership and their medical directors, a physician teaches their physicians, and then a physician teaches the the rest of the clinical staff to basically our level, nurses, paramedics, and whatnot, how we're involved. And it's all with the comfortability of the physician, right? I mean, we know these hospitals are overwhelmed with just day-to-day chest pain, shortness of breath, all that. So they're busy. And it does take time for them to do an induction process, because not only do they have to give them the medication, but they have to take time to watch them to see how they react. Was the dose sufficient? What's the next steps? So, you know, it's really on the provider. You know, we've gotten referrals actually from all three hospitals to a degree, where they've called and said, hey, we know you have this program. But right now, we've been focused with Sacred because they've just been the most involved, I will say, as far as the piece of calling us and saying, hey, we just had someone come in here. They are ideal for the core program. Or, hey, we're working on an induction right now. If y'all want to come over, meet them, do that warm handoff as we've discussed before they ever even leave the property, then they know who they're going to see next, who's going to be taking care of them until we transition them to the FQHC, and we do the same with them. We let them know, those staff members, and get them to know where they're going. So they always know what's next, because fear of the unknown, especially for this group of patients, is very difficult. You know, they're very nervous. Who do I talk to? You know, where am I going next? Whoa. I want to know what's happening. So this process with these, with the hospitals and again, specifically with the FQHC, and I keep pointing behind me because Chandra Smiley with the FQHC sitting back in the audience here behind me, I saw her walk in. Those relationships and that communication highway is important. We continue to go over and meet with their staff to make sure they're aware of what it is we're doing. There's a lot of staff in the hospital, so sometimes, even though you would think by this point, as long as we've been doing this, everybody would know, but maybe they just don't know the full piece of how it operates and what their part is. And our staff is more than kind enough to go over and explain to them. And once they realize, oh, that's what it is? Okay, gotcha. I'll make sure we call you. And again, with the cards, that was the big piece. Hey, just call this number. We'll be right over. So we're starting to see an uptick in that as well. Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you, Chief, for your presentation.
Thank you.
Like I say, once again, compliments on your good job you and your people are doing.
Sure.
So,
Am I allowed to walk
yes,
up and hand?
that's-
Okay, thank you.
Please. Thank you, Chief.
I do. Yes.
Okay, next on the agenda, we have Jeff Lovingood from purchasing in Escambia County. And Jeff, I'd asked you come and just mainly to enlighten us again. Last time you were here quite a few months ago about the purchasing process, and it was new to a lot of us. And just kind of give us, make sure we're doing what we're supposed to be doing when we refer stuff to you. So anyhow, with that, I'll just turn it over to you, Jeff, and then
Sure.
any questions.
First of all, I want to thank the panel for allowing me to come in and speak on this topic. It's something that I deal with every minute of every day, and it's something that most people, procurement policy and things of this nature, most people hope they never have to deal with. So I am the one that, and my team, we help navigate those waters, if you will. My aide Tina has just passed out what we call a cheat sheet that discusses the county procurement policy. If I could, I'd like to go over that real quick just for a moment. And then as you start to think about how this applies to the other information that we've discussed today, understand I want to help navigate a little bit of that. So if you'll turn your attention to the cheat sheet, anything that's under $5,000 can be purchased by any individual with a county P card, okay? All we need is typically one quote, although I always prefer 3 whenever possible, but policy allows any purchase up to $49.99 with a single quote. After $5,000 and up to below $50,000, those do require written quotes. Those can be from a multitude of vendors with the same product. They can be from multiple vendors providing similar products. Just think of different brand names, if you will. Anything along that line will suffice. And then, of course, anything that's $50,000 and over requires a formal solicitation, which is issued by my department. And then below that table, we go through the different types of solicitations. There's an invitation to bid, which is strictly based on price. We provide all of the requirements, all of the specifications. If you match those specifications and requirements, whoever has the lowest price is the vendor that will be awarded the agreement. Below that, you'll find an invitation to negotiate. That's a little more complex and very infrequently used. It's something where we can still provide all of the requirements and specifications, but we still leave the option open to negotiate, potentially to obtain a better price. Request for proposal is typically used in the event where we have a general idea of what it is that we're looking for. We provide that information, but there may be features or facets that we're not familiar with, and so that's authorized to come as a proposal from the vendor, where I may be under the guise of, I believe a warranty is only 1 year, and they go, oh, no, that's 3 years. Okay, that would be in a proposal scenario. And then request for qualifications, that is for qualifications-based solicitations. I don't think it's going to be applicable to what we're doing here. Those are typically used for architects and engineers and other services of that nature. And then on the back side of the cheat sheet, you'll kind of see what's required for each different type of solicitation, okay? Now, having said that, I want to make sure that we understand that a lot of times when dealing with procurement, you hear no a lot, and I do say no a lot, but what I also do is find a way to yes whenever possible. So we are always looking outside the realm of possibility and what we've done before to determine what's the best path forward today. With regard to the I was handed this quote from Fisher Scientific. There's a couple of options that, and a couple of questions that I would have about that. Generally, I do not take quotes unless I know what the specifications are. I say that because there are multiple agreements that are out there, whether it be through the state of Florida or other cooperative purchasing organizations such as Sourcewell, NASPO, the Florida Association of Procurement Professionals, FAPO. There are numerous organizations that have different agreements. So, for example, I've already pulled up the state of Florida agreement with Fisher Scientific. I can't pull up the exact price for these products based on that state pricing agreement, but that's my first question is, how did we come to Fisher Scientific for this product, and how did we come to the pricing that's listed on the quote? As a good steward of the tax revenue that is provided to us that we spend, it's my job to find the best opportunity and best value for the county, or in this instance, this panel. So really, it's just a matter of needing additional information. There could be other products from Medline, Stryker, who knows what other entities may be out there with similar products, but it's just a matter of identifying exactly what it is that we need the product to do, who it's supposed to be for, and then anything that fits that category, we are brand agnostic. We don't care who it comes from as long as it meets all the needs that we've specified, okay? With that, does anybody have any questions about anything I've covered so far?
Yes, so when, as in chief and the sheriff came for these pretty much exact, so when they come and they ask for, you know, a certain product, you would take it, dissect it, and then if you see other entities out there that provides that same product, you would shoot it out there as a request, because we don't have access to that system in which you're speaking of. So you would do that due diligence at your level once they come before us and request a certain product or a certain item. Is that correct?
That's correct. In this instance, if someone were, and this happens routinely, someone will come to me and say, I need to buy this, and this is a quote that I have. So my first question is, what are the specifications and how do we get to this product? What does this product have that another product doesn't? Is there another product that could potentially have all the features that you're looking for? And from a expert perspective, I'm not an expert on what Narcan does, or where it comes from, or how long it's stored, or anything of that nature. My job is to determine, based on these specifications, these are our options. And so my first question would be, if we've arrived at Fisher, what were the specifications that got us to that point? And are there any specifications that may come with this that could be transferable to another product? And so I'm less concerned about who it is, and typically those in the field would understand. For example, I will ask my IT department why I need an HP versus a Dell.
Okay, so,
In this instance, I would say, if Medline has a product that's similar, why do I need the Fisher as opposed to the Medline, or whatever the case may be?
and you'll have that conversations with those particular department heads or those particular entity leaders. So, I guess my final question is, so we don't really need to go dive that deep into that conversation and really dissect that with them, like you just said, like, because we wouldn't have privy to that much information, like you said, with all those other agencies.
Correct. Whoever would be bringing the information to me to say, hey, this is what I want to buy, that's who I would ask those questions of, and then we can go through the process. Now,
Okay.
I will say that a standard solicitation and invitation to bid takes about 90 days from the time that we first advertise it to the time that it is awarded by the board, okay? With competitive contracts and cooperative agreements, especially through the state of Florida, there is an exception in the county ordinance that allows us to bypass some of those rules and regulations, but it's just a matter of dotting all the i's and crossing all the t's, and we can go ahead and make a direct purchase once we have all that information.
Thank you, sir.
Yes.
Any other questions for Jeff?
If you think of something later, we're here to help.
Okay, Jeff, thanks again for your presentation. Appreciate that.
Very well.
Next on the agenda is public speakers. I have one public speaker that's put in a request, Rodney Jones.
Good morning. Listening to Mr. Lovingood, my questions have changed. I want to be able to, I want to put in or present a proposal to you guys in regards to a community-based program from a holistic, using a holistic approach to address the substance abuse issues amongst teens and families. So, is that possible? Or can I do that? After listening to Mr. Lovingood.
Jeff, I'm going to refer that to you. I don't know, the program you're talking about, Rodney, is it,
Yes, sir.
I'm looking for a little help here. Because I don't know what program you're talking about putting forward, proposing, until we have something, know exactly what it is in writing, so.
And it would have to go along with what the regulations are as far as what we could spend funding on.
See, that's what I'm trying to get to. If it would be possible for me to put one in, I would have to know that description. Given I've been to almost every meeting this year, I've heard the sheriff, I've heard the chief, and how that procedure went. I'm asking for a community-based organization that's designed to implement programs to address substance abuse issues amongst teens and do this holistic approach that also addresses issues with the family. Will I be able to present a proposal of such nature without having a
Rodney,
description of that?
my suggestion, I'll certainly welcome anybody else on the board here, but my suggestion would be get with Jeff and discuss what it is you want to do and see if there's any way we can work within the purchasing type procurement processes of the county.
Okay.
Rather than, Jeff, you got something you want to add to that?
If I could. So two things. First of all, thank you for being here.
Thank you, Tim.
The county and actually the state of Florida has very specific rules regarding what are considered unsolicited proposals. And so what I would need is, if if you were to present something, that would have to come before this board to determine if that's something that they would like to consider. At that point, we would have to open the floor for any other entities. Again, I am brand agnostic, so you would be brand A, if you will. But there would be a process where we'd have to go out and say, we've received an unsolicited proposal. This is the basics of it without giving all the information out. We're not looking for trade secrets, but housing, how do you handle that? You know, how are you, just whatever all of the facets are. And I'm not an expert on what you may have as far as some features of your program. The alternative to that would be if the board, this panel, is interested in hearing proposals, then you would issue a request for such. At that point, you would be able to hear from this gentleman and any others that may have an interest in sharing their take on what the best path forward would be. But that's entirely up to this panel on if they wanted to open the floor up to this, or are you looking to just make some purchases and, you know, that type of thing? It's really about the ultimate goal of this board and how you would like to proceed.
Well, like I said, I'll open it up to anybody else on the board, but I understand what you're trying to do, Rodney, but really, we don't have an infinite amount of money in, you know, pool of money, and we can't fund positions, you know, in a program to continue on. Anybody else?
Yes, I think, Rodney, I think if I think you want to come forward to help resolve these issues are great. I think you have a proposal, you have a program, you're definitely qualified as far as your background to, you've given that to us before. For the ones that don't know, can you tell them who you are and what your knowledge base is and what your experience are? But I think all things right now that can help resolve these issues, because that's what we're here for, to help resolve issues in this realm of opioid addiction period, I think is great. Of course, so if you're willing to step up and actually carry that torch, I think that's awesome to help the community. I think that's awesome.
Is there a description of what you're actually looking for that I can go and look at for the opioid abatement board? Is there a description of what you're seeking? I've heard the
I
chief,
think what
I've
it
heard the
comes
sheriff.
down to is you would have to make a request for what you're wanting to pursue, but keep in mind, this is opioid abatement money, so that's what we're required to look at. It's the opioid part of the request.
Yes, I understand that. I've been here for, since the beginning of the year, and I kind of understand what you're looking for, or what this is about. Not really certain about what you were exactly looking for from either the community or independent agencies. That's what my clarity needs to be. What you were actually looking for and what you would actually fund. I've heard now, since the sheriff and the chief came, you can do procurements, you can buy stuff. So in this opioid abatement funding, can you provide funding for an organization who's doing education and awareness? Things like that.
Yes, there's priorities that comes down in our guidelines. Education awareness is one, treatment is another, the wraparound services. There's a whole list of things that the state has listed that the funding is for. So you've been here before and you've presented what your entity do, and I kind of know what you do already in the community, and you want to bring that forward and also help resolve some of these other issues. So again, it's a holistic approach. It's just not like one thing. Procurement is one situation, but also in the guidelines, there are guidelines for treatment. There's guidelines for helping pregnant mothers of addiction. There's guidelines for education awareness. There's guidelines for for housing. There's guidelines, there's a number of guidelines in there that where it becomes a holistic approach, like with Chief here, with the core program. He's doing a whole situation, and there's some gaps in his program also that he needs other community partners to step up and help him facilitate. So there's guidelines for exactly what we're looking for, and as long as you're within those guidelines, I say make your proposal.
And I understand this, it seems like this is a one-and-done type of deal. You're just going to do something one time. I understand that. We are a self-sustaining program. We currently contract with other entities that deal specifically with youth, like the Department of Juvenile Justice. We contract currently for them. So my target base is that particular population. Well, we are already receiving services. We're not looking to be funded from here to 10 years from now. We understand that there's a serious issue, and we want to address that issue. No different than the chief and the sheriff and all these other entities that have come before the board and presented or talked. That's all we're here to do.
I don't think it's a one-and-done situation, because the funding is going to come in over a period of time, and we're looking at, there's funding that's going to come in over a period of time, and I'm sure that some of these agencies, because let's just face it, there's only a certain amount of agencies in the county. There's not like it's going to be, well, sometimes it's, you know, you have new people that pops up, but, you know, as funding comes in over year, there's some that's going to be it's going to be a reoccurring thing. It's not like, okay, well, here's your little piece, go on about your business. I don't look at it like that at all. I think that as long as they're funding and people have, as we said it in the beginning when we first started, proof of work, as Chief just came down and said, hey, I had this many, and this is what's happening. I think it's, I think as long as they're funding and there's results, I just don't think that's a one and done type situation. Of course, it's not a funding for infinite, like 100 years, but as long as they're funding and people are showing results in their work, I don't see why people could not continuously to get funded. We had that talk with the other gentleman from the procurement office, and he said, you know, so I think the more people we have to step up to help resolve this issue, the better, because one agency, one entity cannot possibly handle everyone in the county. So more power to you, man. Put your proposal together, come before us, and let's see what you have.
All right, thank you.
Kathy, do you have something? That's all of the speakers I have listed here today. Anything from the county attorney's office? Okay. Yes,
Do you have any questions on the data that was provided?
I didn't have any questions, no. Thank you for it, no. Appreciate it. Okay, we stand adjourned. Thank you, everybody. We got to schedule next meeting. Sorry, we're not adjourned. Back in. Thank you, Matt. Okay, September, I'm going to be out of town the entire month of September. So if you want, certainly y'all can have it without me, but if you want to wait till first week in October.
Every other month.
Yeah, pretty much. I just want to make sure it's okay.
October 2nd, does that work for everybody at 10?
October 2nd, that works for me.
Yes, that'd be great.
Okay.
Okay. All right, thank you, everybody, for your attendance, and now we stand adjourned officially.